Good evening then to Eoin Keith, an absolute spine legend. I was looking for expert insight into the spine race. You were the first person I thought to call. How are you, Ian?
I'm good, good. Glad to be here, as ever. Enjoying the race, but no matter which side of it I'm on, it's always great to watch.
Oh, no, that's amazing. I love the idea that you're still attached enough to it that you are there watching along as well and keeping an eye on the updates.
I suspect I will be forever. It gets in quite deep.
Yeah, I suspect I will be as well. Well, there you go. I've abandoned my sheet of questions already. You just said there it gets in quite deep. What do you mean by that exactly? And I've seen this. We've got plenty of spiners that come back over and over again, but what is it that gets in deep there?
I think that the spine family thing, it's not just a made-up marketing thing. It's real. That's something that came from reality and became part of the marketing rather than the other way around. And yeah, that's one of the main reasons I keep coming back, if not the main reason. It's, when I think about, I've done it so many times. I don't know if they want to go back again. And then I think about all the people I'd miss and, all the adventures I'd miss out on. And I know the alternative would have to be really good to top that. So it just pulls me back in every time.
I mean, well, that's just absolutely lovely to hear. Um, and I really wanted to get your sort of insight tonight because for the people right at the sharp end of the race, this is the last night. You know, at the front end of the Challenger North, it could well be overnight tonight in the early hours of the morning when that runner gets in, and obviously Chris Cope is out there at the front of the full spine at the moment, just loping along the
Yeah.
Pennine Way, and he's not desperately far away either. Now, obviously, they're extremely fatigued by this point. You know, they're very, very tired. And you've experienced that. You've been heading out there into the Cheviots with just sort of one last stretch, one last night. So I figured if anybody knows what this feels like, it'll be you. So what are those runners right at the front likely to be feeling right now? Is there anticipation? Would you be excited, or is there fear there that a wheel could still fall off somewhere?
Normally, in my case, when I reached Achieve and I definitely committed to going, I love it because it's one of the most out there places to be, probably the most out there place on the whole race. And by that, you know, not so much these days now that we have multiple races running, but certainly when you're just the main spine, you kind of had the mountain to yourself and you knew that you were just out there on your own, taking care of yourself, no help coming, no, and that can be either really scary or really empowering and elating. I think if you're a front runner, you're going to find it empowering and elating almost without doubt. Otherwise, you wouldn't find yourself in that position. So plus, I think the tributes are probably the my favorite part of the course. They're a great range of mountains. They roll up and down nicely. If you've got the views are absolutely great. In my last spine, there were two of us together, and we were there at night, and we just turned off our head torches from it and just stood there looking around, taking in the views because it's a special place to be, and sort of couldn't photograph it, but sort of committed to the camera's mind or the mind's camera, pardon me. And yeah, it's that kind of place. And to me, it feels magical. And it can become pseudo magical as well because normally, as you say, you're very tired, very sleep deprived. So I've had most of my weirder spine uh, hallucinations or hallucination type events have been there. And I've been on the TV and having three-way arguments with myself because I've had three personalities on the go in my mind, just discussing what was the best strategy, between stopping, carrying on, and whatever the third uh, internal personality was saying. I've been looking at houses there that I know that don't exist, but I'm just saying, yeah, that's a hallucination. I can see it quite clearly, but I know it's a hallucination. And I can remember at one point having a Kate Bush song going through my head that I hadn't heard in 10 years. And when I went back after the race, I realized I played it back perfectly in my head, including the
Wow.
video. It's very strange. It was Army Dreamers, a song I
Wow.
love, but still I hadn't heard it in about 10 years. And yeah, it was, you just get you never know what's going to happen when you're that tired. So that's part of the entertainment, of course.
Well, I mean, while you're up there in the Cheviot, as you say, you're exposed. You're on your own
Yeah,
up there. That's a very, very remote part of the course. I
yeah.
know that the runners are carrying the sort of kit that allows them to, biv out and maybe take a quick power nap if they've got to, but I can't imagine you're going to want to sleep for long up there. So what
No, you don't
what
want to.
what what can you do to keep yourself moving forwards when your brain is in that condition, when you just are that tired?
You've got to say that to yourself that you can't stop. You don't have an alternative. No matter how much you want to stop, it's too it's too dangerous, or you lose more than you gain. Up at the Cheviots anyway, unless you're really, really moving so slowly that you would actually gain. And sometimes it might be worth 10 minutes. I know John Kelly, it's famously likes to lie down and puzzle so that the approaching uncomfortableness wakes him up automatically after a few minutes. You'll get that up at the Cheviots for sure. Um, so yeah, the huts are a good place to stop if you need to stop. So you can use those as intermediate targets if you're feeling really, really down. But to my mind, when you leave hut one, you commit. You're not going to stop before hut two. So if there's any doubt, take the break at hut one and then commit to hut two. That I always think that's a good approach. And of course, we've seen in the past that runners can really drive themselves. Eugenie famously could easily have got himself into deep trouble there and did, still had to be rescued off the mountain in the hut two area. So
Yeah.
these things can happen quite late into the race, even when you think you're home and hose. So you still have to stay alert and you still have to keep yourself, you know, fully alert to the dangers that are out there.
And we've seen quite a lot of it. There's always a lot of attrition in a spine race. I was about to say
Yeah.
that like it was something unusual, but we've seen quite a lot, especially for a summer race over the last few days, and it's those underfoot conditions that we've seen macerated feet up and down the course. I've been avoiding pointing my cameras at them because no one at home wants to see what we've been seeing in the
Yeah.
checkpoints. I mean, what on earth can the runners do during the race about that? What could you maybe be doing as a runner to try and prevent that, if anything at all?
Well, to prevent it, um, choice of gear is obviously big. Changing your shoes and socks if you have the opportunity as often as you can. Getting whatever cream or lotions or powders, whatever works for you onto your feet is a big one, and you'll find that the guys who do that proactively and preferably before they run into trouble are usually the ones with the best feet. A lesson I've learned the hard way. Get in ahead of the game. Um, Personally, I use waterproof shoes because it's not so much to keep the water out, but to keep the grit out, even if the water's getting in. Because it's the combination that will do the most damage. I mean, water will honestly cause your feet all sorts of problems on its own, but add in grit and you're gonna definitely get blisters, things like that. So you know, it's a battle the whole way, and you got to have a full system. I find that if you have waterproof shoes, the two big holes in the top where the feet go, so waterproof trousers covering those will make a big difference. Things like that. But there's a lot to tackle. Of course, once it goes bad, first thing is to address it as early as possible, because people have a tendency to go, oh, I'll get it at the next aid station, or I'll just go on for another couple of miles or there's a place to stop. You have to get over that battle with yourself and do it as soon as you know something needs to be addressed. If there's something in your foot, stop it. In your shoes, stop, get it out, fix it, go on. If you can feel a blister coming on, stop, see what you can do in the field to address it. No. Uh, the spare pair of socks that you carry. I mean, if I'm carrying them, I make sure that they're actually a usable pair, so that if I need to, I'll put them on. They're not just because they're in the kit anyway. might as well make them something that's actually useful. So
Yeah.
that's another little weapon you have to use. And the, but yeah, in the end, when your feet do start going bad, unfortunately, it usually comes down to just taking it and dealing with it, and you know, being as hardcore as you can mentally get on and pushing yourself as far as you can, and eventually it does, you know. What I find is what I call the morphine effect kicks in. It's not you're taking morphine, but what I've heard said about morphine is that it doesn't stop you feeling the pain. It stops you from caring about the pain. And you have to sort of get that to that point where the pain is there, but it doesn't matter because you've other things in your mind, like keeping moving forward and keeping on course and getting to the next aid station or to the finish line or whatever the immediate target is, or staying with the group you're with, catching the guy in front, staying ahead of the guys behind, whatever, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, you've been through that and you make it sound so easy. And I
But
wanted
it
to talk
isn't.
to you at
Yeah.
this. Exactly. I wanted to talk to you about this because I'm on the other side of it. I am speaking from a layman's perspective to an extent, and it's hard to imagine the amount of tiny little frustrations of having to repeatedly deal with those tiny little problems, of having to persevere despite being in pain for long periods of time, or having to force yourself to stay awake. There seem to be 1,000 reasons a day for your morale to drop,
There are.
for you to start feeling down. I mean, what is your tactic against that? How do you just not allow yourself to become emotionally overwhelmed by all that?
The key is to give yourself the targets to keep going, and you always have to have one. And I again, another thing I've learned the hard way. Never reach your targets without having a follow-on target. So, the finish, getting you to the finish is obviously one that's going to get you the whole way if you keep focused. But you need lots of intermediate ones as well, like getting to the next aid station or staying with the people you're with, or keeping the other person going, taking a responsibility on board. That it can be anything, but as long as you have a target and a motivation, that's the key thing. And uh, keep the focus on that as opposed to, oh God, everything hurts. I just want to stop because yeah, you got to get that. We all get that, no matter where we are. And personally, particularly when I was younger and faster, the race was the key part of it. And the race is what would be usually be my target. Stay ahead of the people behind. If there's someone in front, try and catch them. You know, if I was so occasionally happened I was far enough in front that I wouldn't be caught, then I'd be, chasing a time to keep myself going. I remember the first time I won the spine, arriving into Hut 2, and the lovely guys from Mountain Rescue were there, and they said, well, if you make it in before 8 in the morning, you'll be under 4 days. I said, well, that's a good target. And that got me out of there going nice faster than I would have otherwise done. So, it could be anything, but giving yourself these targets to motivate yourself to keep going. And the old road, preferably at speed, because the faster you go, the quicker it's over.
Yeah. And I
And
have
those,
heard that.
yeah, and those were actually the arguments that my personalities were having with each other out the Cheviot. It was that very thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to name any names, but I have spoken to at least two runners today who when I asked, why are you jumping out of this checkpoint? Why you could take an hour here and you'd still be absolutely fine. You're not going
Fine.
to lose your position, but they
Yeah,
have to push. They they
yeah,
they have to keep moving, and I've seen that over and over again. And part of it is, this has got to stop. I've got
yeah.
to get to the end of this.
And
Uh,
there's actually a huge danger of getting too comfortable at the aid stations, and it's something I'm constantly on the watch for. Because the more comfortable you are in the aid station, the harder it is to get back out again. Uh, you know, especially when conditions are wet and nasty, and just open the door, you look out, and it's like, no, I don't want to do this. So there's a lot of merit to getting through the aid stations fast without getting too comfortable and getting warm and cozy and nice dry clothes and so on. Sometimes I'll try do exactly the opposite. I've been known to not go indoors in an aid station and stay standing up is another one. Not sit down, get comfortable. It's easier to just get going again. It's a trickier balance at the main aid stations, but You have to
Yeah.
watch for sure.
And you see it with the more experienced volunteers, the ones that have seen no end of spiners go through this. You will see runners in this race arrive at a checkpoint swearing that this is the end. I'm
Yeah,
not going further than this. I can't possibly. And the more experienced people in the checkpoints just keep them moving. Just
yeah,
okay, okay, but what do you need to eat? Okay, okay, but what's next?
yeah,
And push them through their admin, and eventually you find that they will just default back into race mode again
yeah,
once a few of their needs have been met. And yeah,
yeah,
you seem
yeah,
to need that momentum.
yeah. And sometimes a little reset will do you the world of good. It's definitely the case, and it's very true. Never quit going into an aid station. Always get yourself back out again. Quit. You can quit down the road. Don't quit going in. And if you can do that, all is good to go. Easier said than done. Another thing. I mean, I have, even in the last time this winter, I did quit at one point in my mind and turn around, then unquit about 10 seconds later. So, we all have these lows. Yeah.
Wow,
And
I mean, I didn't know that.
yeah.
That's amazing.
And the main thing that kept me going is I had someone else with me where we'd been together for days. And, that's one of the things to keep me going. And it was a case of he kept me going and I kept him going. So, that combination works well. Yeah, and I could see in the spine that the lead Irish guy has been with someone for over a day now. They're in joint third, and I reckon they'll go to the finish together. And they're probably pulling each other a lot. And an awful lot of people have quit ahead of them. An awful lot. As you
Oh
say,
yeah.
the attrition rate's been phenomenal, even at the front of the field, right from the off. So on paper, I can see the conditions, but that illustrates that the muck and flop must be pretty awful there. And that's
Yeah.
that's probably the worst of it. Dealing with freezing cold like we've had in the winter is relatively straightforward. But dealing with heat, I'm good with that. A lot of people are good with that. But that intermediate one where it's warm but wet is probably the worst, hardest to deal with. And I think that's what we've got right here. So it's a good challenge.
Yeah, it is that. And it feels like a couple of events in a row now. Sort of 2 summers on the bounce, we've had exactly that. This cycle of rain, but then warm periods, and rain and then warm periods. And nobody ever really gets to dry off. The
Yeah,
humidity is incredibly high.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
your feet are just soaking it in.
I just checked the forecast and the humidity on the GVX is showing 100% for the next 12 hours at least. So yeah, you're so right about that. And that means that your waterproof gear is not working as effectively as it could. It's going to be more like boiling the bag because it's the difference between the humidity levels that tends to push it through the waterproof layers. So that it works really well in freezing conditions, but in warm conditions, you've got Hobson's choice there. If it's raining, do you keep the jacket on and get wet quickly or slowly, or do you keep take the jacket off and get wet quickly? And controlling the temperature and controlling your, not to get too cold and not to get too warm. It's really, really difficult in those circumstances. And yeah, people
Yeah,
often
that
think that the likes of the winter spine in Norway, it's extremely difficult, or Norway, Sweden, whatever it is. But in some ways, it's simpler because it's such an extreme. You know exactly what you have to cope with. Whereas when you're between the extremes, it's actually a lot more orphan. Nobody really manufactures the gear for that kind of weather. It tends to be manufactured for more extreme stuff. So it's a tricky balancing act, and it takes a lot more thought to, and a lot more self awareness of your own comfort and what works for you to work through. Because different people will be more comfortable in different parts of that balance. I tend to want to stay warm at all costs because it's much easier to get cooler than warmer. Some people, hate running warm and they're happy to go a bit colder and will be out there in shorts and t-shirts as the hurricane comes in on top of them.
yeah, we've seen that. And Lindley Chambers. There's a
Yeah,
man
exactly.
there's a man in
Yeah.
sandals and shorts, no matter what the weather.
Exactly.
Um, so we're not too far away now from putting a medal round the neck of a number of winners, and you've been there and done that. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen you experience that moment a few times. And I'm sure this is a different thing for everybody as well, but what are those runners about to feel when they
Uh,
go through that arch and they touch that wall? What are they about to process?
well, I think I like to grab hold of it and really treasure it because you put a lot of work into getting to that point, and it's the ultimate culmination of that work. If you can get there and win it, my God, it's a huge, huge thing. So I deliberately work myself up to try and treasure it and embrace it as much as possible because you know they don't come around very often. So you gotta make the most of it when it comes around, no matter who you are. So yeah, hopefully that's what they're doing. I mean, for me, I absolutely go for it, the exhilaration and so on. When you know from far enough out, you can really think it through and really you can write yourself a great finishing speech as well. That's what I discovered. You got plenty of time for that. So yeah, hopefully that's the case. Definitely a lot of pain. You don't really feel the pain when you're that if when you get to the finish line at that point, it should be all fun, fun, fun. Um, and yeah, I usually no matter how tired I am, it usually takes me hours and hours and hours to actually head off and sleep. It's just so exciting, you know. Such exciting. Yeah, hopefully that'll be the case at all of them out there, And it looks there's huge gaps, as you say,
Mm.
in the spine race in particular. But interestingly enough, if I was in the lead, I'd be racing like there's a fascinating race going on between the lead, Chris, and Anna Troop's record. So they're actually
Yes.
neck and neck. So I wonder if he knows that because I'd be racing that if I was him, just for the fun and to keep the motivation going. And that's a cracking pace because Anna's record is super. Um, and yeah, so hopefully things like that keep them going and keep them excited, keep them engaged. Yeah.
Well, look, you've got me excited for it now. I love a finish line. I feel like I soak up a little bit of the emotions
Yeah.
that those athletes are feeling over the course of the week, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this one too. But yeah, with that in mind, I need to share this with the world, and I don't want to take up too much of your evening, Ian.
You can
Um,
take up my whole evening, unfortunately. I'd be very happy with that.
well, look, thanks very much for taking the time this evening to chat to me. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah,
it's my pleasure.
I
It is, as I say, the fine family. Anything at all to get involved. I love it. I love it. It's such a great event with such great people, yourself included. So yeah, the more the merrier.
well, I'll keep finding excuses to chat to you then, Ian, because I really enjoy this. And you know what? I'm just going to say it that the very first time I was ever on a spine event, the very first athlete I was ever asked to go and point a camera at an interview was you. And I was
Yeah.
terrified and I didn't know who anybody was or what I was doing. And you were amazing. You put me at ease and you made it so simple. So there you go. I'm recording this and it's going out there. I thank you for that because that really set me onto where I am now. And
Well,
yeah,
that's beautiful to hear because it's a two-way thing. I love it. Equally, I really enjoy these things. So yeah, it's great.
well, have a lovely evening, and I'll find an excuse to speak to you again as soon as I can.
Please do as soon as you can. Absolutely. Have a good evening.
Bye.